Hi! If you're new to this channel, welcome. My name is Emma. I am a polymer clay artist and I really enjoy to make videos of my polymer clay journey and sculpting with you guys, as well as vlogging my everyday life here in Denmark and my travels. So I guess just an all-around cozy vibe, creative vlog channel where we keep each other company. So in my last video, I said that I wanted to do a how to polymer clay O2 video. I made my first how to polymer clay video about 8 or 9 months ago and it was super popular, actually the most popular video on my channel, and I got a lot of really positive feedback from you guys, which made me really happy. And a lot of you guys requested that I did another how to polymer clay video with other tips and tricks for you guys, so that day is today. If you didn't watch my first video, you can go watch it here, or you probably can't go watch it here because I don't know how to insert another video in a YouTube video, but you can just search on the title in my channel, I guess. All right, let's just jump straight into it. So as I just mentioned, I already made my first how to polymer clay video where I cover all the basics of how to polymer clay, so I'm not gonna go over that again. The kind of polymer clay brand I'm using is Sculpey Primo. It looks like this. And in my opinion, that's the best kind of polymer clay you can use because it's not too soft, it's not too hard, and it's just perfect for the kind of polymer clay figurine that I am doing. Obviously, there are a lot of polymer clay brands out there, and I guess you just have to figure out what kind of polymer clay is suitable for what you're gonna do with it, right? So when you've made your figurine out of polymer clay, you wanna bake it. And baking can be probably the most tricky part of when you're making a polymer clay figurine, or at least the part that most people feel anxious about, right? Because sometimes the polymer clay figurine cracks. Usually when polymer clay cracks, it's either because you didn't condition the clay enough, or you baked your polymer clay figurine at the wrong temperature. The instructions for how many degrees you have to bake a polymer clay figurine at will be at the back of the clay package. Usually it's 275 Fahrenheit, but a lot of ovens actually don't show the right temperature, and polymer clay can be a little sensitive to heat, so it's really important that you bake it on the right temperature, right? So the first tip is to use an oven thermometer. You don't have to use this, but this can be super useful if you're having problems with your clay cracking in the oven. So to make sure that your polymer clay figurine is not cracking because of the heat from the oven, you can use this oven thermometer to make sure of that. Staying on the topic of baking the polymer clay figurine, the next tip is to get some sort of baking mat when baking a polymer clay figurine. When I started out making polymer clay figurines and I baked them in the oven, I would put them like directly on the baking plate surface. And I noticed that my polymer clay figurines would always get burned at the bottom, you know, the part that touches the plate. The reason for that obviously is the plate in the oven gets a lot of heat, it gets hotter than the air in the oven. So essentially the bottom of the polymer clay that touches the plate will get hotter than the rest of the figurine, which will cause it to burn at the bottom. There's nothing worse than when you've been working on a polymer clay figurines for a long time and you put it in the oven and it burns. That's like such a sad feeling. So what I do is I use a baking mat, because a baking mat will kind of reflect the heat a little bit, so the bottom of the polymer clay figurine won't get as hot. I use like a silicone baking mat. That's really useful. Sometimes I use two just to make sure that the bottom won't get too hot. So that's a really convenient trick, and I use that every time I make my figurines. So a lot of you guys have asked me about how to bond two pieces of clay together. I think most of us know the struggle of not getting the pieces of your figurine to stick together, right? So as I covered in my last video, you can use different techniques to make them stick together. Polymer clay sticks naturally together because it is a little bit sticky, but you can use like a metal wire to make them stick, or you can use tools to kind of blend the pieces together. But I personally think that one of the most easy ways to make two parts of a figurine stick together before you bake it is by using liquid Sculpey. So liquid Sculpey is like glue. You use it between two parts of clay before baking it, and then you put it in the oven and it will harden like the rest of the clay and make the two pieces stick together. Usually you can get all your Sculpey products and the liquid Sculpey from most craft stores. I used to get mine from Michaels, but unfortunately we don't have Michaels in Denmark, so I have to order mine from Amazon. So liquid Sculpey is a really easy way to combine two pieces of polymer clay together, but just remember you have to do it before baking it. So the fourth tip today is to use aluminum foil. You're probably thinking like, how can I use aluminum foil to make a figurine? That makes no sense. Actually, aluminum foil Sounds like a spell from Harry Potter. So aluminum foil is really useful when you want to save some of your clay and don't use too much clay when you're sculpting. It doesn't burn or anything like that. It's totally safe to use it in the oven. For example, when I'm making some of my spirit figurines, I'm making the head of the spirit figurine pretty round, right? So instead of making the head of my figurine totally solid, I will take a little bit of aluminum foil, roll it into a little ball, and put the clay around the aluminum foil. So basically, some of my figurines are hollow because I put aluminum foil in the middle of them. So we all know that polymer clay attracts dust all the time. It's almost impossible not to get dust in your polymer clay. As I explained in my previous video, the most effective way to remove dust is by using rubbing alcohol, right? But sometimes the dust will find a way to get onto your polymer clay anyways. But luckily there's a way of removing dust from your polymer clay figurine after baking. You won't be able to use rubbing alcohol as the dust will be kind of baked into the polymer clay, so it won't get off that easy. But what you can do is to use some fine sandpaper or a nail file. So I'm actually using a nail filing machine to get the dust off. But I used to use some really fine sandpaper. So basically you just take your polymer clay figurine and then you just file away the dust. It gives the polymer clay figurine a pretty smooth look, and it's also pretty easy to get it off unless the dust is like really stuck in the clay. Then you would probably have to file a lot more off, and that could change the shape of the figurine, and you don't want that. Some of you guys have asked if you can use anything different than UV resin to glaze your polymer clay figurines. Honestly, I don't have a lot of knowledge about that, as I've only ever used UV resin, but I know you can use a ton of different products to glaze and varnish your figurines. You can probably find more information about what to use to varnish your figurines online, but I'm pretty sure that no matter what you use, it's gonna be, toxic for you to inhale. It's not like it's gonna be dangerous for you to get on your hands, but you just have to make sure to get it off pretty quickly because you are working with chemicals and you are breathing the toxins in, which is why it's super important to use the proper safety gear. As I've mentioned before, I always use like a respirator mask, and I also always use gloves, like rubber gloves or something like that, so I don't get it on my hands. But if you should get it on your hands, you can remove it with nail polish remover or rubbing alcohol. You just have to make sure that you find a nice UV resin brand, as I mentioned, because some UV resins will turn yellowish with time, and that's not a nice look. So on that note, when I glaze my figurines, I put the UV resin on the figurine after baking, and then I just use a regular paintbrush to kind of brush the UV resin on top of the figurine. So when I'm done glazing the figurine and the figurine is done hardening in my UV lamp, I'm left with a brush with lots of UV resin on, right? And some people ask me, how do you clean that? And as I mentioned, I usually get the UV resin off my hands with nail polish remover or rubbing alcohol, and I just basically do the same for the brush. So I'll just dip the brush in a little bit of rubbing alcohol or nail polish remover, soak it for a while, and then just dry it off with some kitchen towel or something like that. And that usually does the trick. All right, so I guess that's kind of what I thought you guys should know about polymer clay that I didn't already mention in my previous video. I hope that I covered most of you guys' questions. Lots of you guys have messaged me on my Instagram or my TikTok, and I tried to kind of get all of those questions answered in this video. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave a comment down below and I'll try to answer it as fast as possible. I started a new job and I just find it really hard to make time for doing videos like this and crafting, which makes me really sad, but that's kind of how it is right now. As I mentioned in my previous video, I will try to make time to doing stuff like this. I love to make these videos. I love to talk to you guys and that we keep each other company. I think that's really cozy. So yeah, I always feel really excited when I'm making a new video. The sun is setting and I'm losing daylight, so it's probably a good time to end this video. So yeah, thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you got something out of this video. I feel like it's getting kind of hard for me to speak English now. Now I'm used to speaking Danish and I don't use my English anymore. Actually, I only use my English when I'm making these videos. So yeah, maybe you can tell. I don't know. I hope you guys are trying to find light in these kind of dark times. I find it a bit hard sometimes personally, but I try to focus on the positive, and yeah, we're definitely gonna be fine. All right, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.